Today is July 13. Namaste. Welcome to Jack Colley's Black Book. We're on page 2. And we left off last time looking at good versus evil and how these concepts of good versus evil, they just seem to lack substance in my mind. I think a lot of times we put things in the good and the evil category based on what people tell us or based on just a couple of experiences. And to some extent, that's natural. I think that we were created or we evolved, depending on what you believe about that, to come into contact with new things and to categorize and evaluate and judge and determine, is something safe, unsafe, is it good, is it evil, is it good for us, bad for us? The evolutionist, biologist in me would say, does it help you reproduce or does it not help you reproduce, which is an incredibly, I think, overly pragmatic way to look at, how we interact with the world. And yet, when you look at, I forget who the author was, it may have been Dawkins, The Selfish Gene, the idea that there's one driving factor, and that's to reproduce. So, but regardless, however you look at, what's driving things, whether it's creation, whether it's evolution, whether it's a combination of the two, we have this tendency to put things into categories. And a lot of times we put things into categories based on what people tell us. So I have suggested, and I'm going to go to the ice cream picture. This is where we left off. I have suggested that maybe we need a more sophisticated process by which to evaluate something as going into the good column or going into the evil column. And maybe we just need to lose that practice altogether. Maybe life is just not so simple that we can just end up with some simplistic categories of we're going to call this good, we're going to call this evil, particularly when it comes to our often inappropriate or I guess I don't know, but our classification of our fellow human beings, as, well, this person is evil or this person is good. I think we need to be very careful of those categories. So I have 4 examples, and the first one is ice cream. We're going to go through these really quickly. I hope that this will draw attention to what I am suggesting in terms of how do we evaluate something as good or evil. So ice cream is neither good nor evil when it is sitting in your freezer. It's not good or evil. It's pretty neutral. It's not harming anybody. It's not helping anybody. Now, when we put the ice cream in motion, that is to say, when we take it out of the freezer, we obviously have taken it out of the freezer with some sort of intention, and that intention has created a sort of trajectory. So let me share with you again, we're going to try not to categorize ice cream as good any more than we're going to try to categorize ice cream as evil. This is just more looking at the process that I'm suggesting. One person might take the ice cream out of the freezer because they've had a rough day. And I remember when I was a kid, we used to get ice cream before bed. So right around 7:30 when the Muppets came on, we got a bowl of ice cream. And so I still, to this day, I associate ice cream with as a comfort food. So somebody might take ice cream out of the freezer and put it on the kitchen counter with the intent of just kind of taking the edge off of a bad day. It's called comfort eating, comfort food. And I would say that there's really nothing wrong with that. If it helps you to have a half gallon of ice cream, go for it. If it helps you a couple times a week, I'm not sure that I see a lot of harm in that. I do think, though, that as your shadow comes up, as it starts communicating, well, wait a minute, I'm having ice cream every time that I'm stressed, and it's starting to affect my health. I'm putting on weight. I'm lactose intolerant. I struggle with digesting dairy. I don't know, but you start to understand that this might be a problem. Then you might start saying, well, that ice cream kind of leans towards something that's going to harm me, and I need to do something about it. Again, we're not going to call ice cream evil, but it starts to lean one way or the other as we evaluate it. If we're at a birthday party with a bunch of kids and they want to have ice cream sundaes, You put the ice cream sundaes out and you see the joy and you see the excitement and being able to build your own ice cream. And, if you're like the Colley family on vacation, when my kids were little, I would always say, you get to have as much ice cream as you want. It's vacation. Just be reasonable. I taught them to be reasonable. So it might be something like that, where ice cream is a treat. It's something that brings positive energy to your house or to your life or to your house too. And then there's the reality of people who have a really difficult relationship with food. Excuse me. An individual whose relationship with food and relationship with their bodies are so off that they have this constant struggle of, I have to eat, and yet taking in food is causing me to look at life in incredibly different ways. And I'm talking about, anorexia nervosa or bulimia. I have such an unhealthy relationship with food. And it's this struggle, I can only imagine, this struggle of you have to eat, but you have this relationship with food and you have this relationship with your body. That's got to be incredibly challenging for individuals with eating disorders. So as we describe different motions and trajectory that food might have, we begin to see how this might start leaning toward ice cream is not good versus ice cream is good. So let's take a look at a couple. Now, these are going to get more and more intense, at least I think. But again, I'm trying to offer this suggestion of how do we evaluate something without necessarily placing it in a category of good and evil. How do we look at the motion and the trajectory of an inanimate object and how it affects our life and what we can do about it? I'm going to go really quickly on this one, but I thought it was an excellent example. I hesitated using it as an example, but I thought it was a good example. And rope. So rope is, we're not going to call rope good. We're not going to call rope evil. But let me just make this suggestion. If we utilize rope, if we put it in motion, and we tie the rope to the end of a life ring like you have on ships, because if somebody is drowning and needs help, we have to throw them a lifeline. And usually there's a float on the end of the rope. We would then say that the rope is leaning toward, based on its motion and trajectory of saving life, it is skewed toward good. It's good that we have rope. It's good that we have something that we can tie to a flotation device to get somebody help in the water and to pull them in. By the same token, and I'm just going to mention this, I'm not going to go into any descriptive, because I don't think that would necessarily serve its purpose other than to make this point. A rope can also be fashioned into a noose. And when we look at ropes in that particular realm, when we look at the motion and the trajectory of a rope that is fashioned into a noose, and we start to think in terms of our history of racism in this country, and we start to think in terms of individuals who, have reached a level of despair where they want to take their own life, rope suddenly just has this incredibly sobering, horrible connotation to it. So, as a suggestion, it's try not to make rope good or evil, but understand if we're going to categorize something as good or evil, we're really talking about the motion and the trajectory. Alcohol is another great example, and this one I hear a lot of. I do hear individuals in my circle that they will say alcohol is evil, and I have a lot of friends that would say alcohol is good. They'll say, "Oh, I love alcohol," and other people would say, "Oh, no, alcohol is evil." This too, I want you to look at the motion in the trajectory. So whether we're talking about liquor, which is in the picture here, or whether we're talking about beer or wine, I'm going to suggest that we don't look at this inanimate object as either good or evil. You can hear Shadow barking in the background here, so he's helping me out. So this might be, we're going to just let him bark. He can be a part of this. The liquor, the vodka in your cupboard, the bottle of wine in your refrigerator, it's not doing any good, and it's also not doing any harm. It's just there. It's taking up space. When we put these items into motion, That is to say, when we take the vodka out of the cupboard and we put it into motion, as soon as we take the vodka out of the cupboard, we're putting it in motion and we're giving it a trajectory based on our intention. So if we had a rough day and we automatically go to the cupboard and we have that shot and we make that drink, if we do that enough, we're going to have an addiction. If we automatically go for the beer because for some reason we think that we have to be rewarded for a hard day's work. And again, nothing wrong with rewarding, nothing wrong with using it in and of itself, but be aware of the motion and the trajectory that you give alcohol in your life. If you're using it to self-medicate, be careful. So if you start putting that alcohol in motion because somehow you think it's 5 o'clock, it's time to drink. Well, if you don't have another reason for using alcohol other than it's 5 o'clock and it's time for drink, your shadow is probably telling you, time out here. Where are you getting this message that just because it's 5 o'clock, you need to have a drink? Maybe a fruit juice, maybe ice water, maybe there would be a better choice. At least pay attention to that. At the same time, if you're out with friends and you want to have a drink to relax and kick back, or you're partying, celebrating, I like the phrase, everything in moderation, including moderation. I think that there is something to be said about some people utilize alcohol in terms of celebration. They enjoy it. They enjoy the mixology and all the stuff that people do with alcohol. But pay very close attention to the motion and the trajectory of alcohol. It will give you feedback, and very quickly you'll begin to classify for yourself, is alcohol leaning toward evil or is it leaning toward good? We're never going to categorize it. I think that that's unproductive. I think there's better ways to use your time and evaluate what's going on, particularly in a world that, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get rid of alcohol. It's going to be all around us for the rest of my life, certainly. Even in Prohibition, it was still available. So, we have to look at things, and based on what motion and trajectory. Oh, Shadow's here. Hey, Shadow. Hey, Bubby. Welcome. Okay. Everybody gets to meet Shadow. So based on the motion and the trajectory that we give these inanimate objects, we can at least start having a more sophisticated understanding of, is something good or is something evil? Next picture, I'll give you a heads up. I've got a picture of handguns. Something that I have a lot of opinions on, and we're going to pick up there next time. Shadow, can you say namaste? Huh? You're awesome, Bubby. You get to be a part of this. Yeah. I'm going to let the video go longer because I'm pretty proud of my horse here. This is my horse. This is Shadow, named after Carl Jung. Oh. He just saw his reflection. We're just going to let this go. I hope that's okay. What's that? Is that you? Is that you? Yeah? Go play, Bubby. All right. All right. Okay. Okay, go play. All right. Namaste, my friends.